topic, I would like Mr. Stokinger to give us a history of the Timberlane's share of the LGC Health Trust refund by date and disposition, if he would.
I don't know that that's relevant tonight.
I don't want it.
I don't need it.
Need to make a motion to ask for that.
I make a motion that Mr. Stokinger give us the history of Timberlane's share of the LGC Health Trust refund by date and disposition. And if this board votes against it, you will have a very keen audience to observe how this board typically delegates its responsibility for fiscal oversight. So that's my motion.
Mrs. Green, we're well aware that this meeting is being videotaped. You don't have to, throw out any veiled threats. We're all aware. Thank you. There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I'll second it for discussion.
Any discussion?
What will we gain from having it?
Well, we will gain the knowledge that there is a third tranche coming, I understand, in September. And I want to understand what's going to happen if that anticipated revenue is greater than what we are budgeted to receive. There are a whole host of questions I have about the 3 tranches of this money and how it has been deployed.
Motion.
Is there any further
question?
All right, fair enough. Excuse me.
Could I just add something very quickly?
Certainly.
So I actually looked into this, and the first meeting the Budget Committee had in September of 2013, it was in this room. Mr. Stokinger was sitting there, and you were sitting right next to him, Mrs. Green. He went through in very great detail exactly what the health trust refund was. You had a discussion with him about if it came as credit or cash and what that meant, and I believe Mr. Stokinger's response was, if we get it in 10s or 20s, it doesn't matter, we have to, it's the same money. So there in September, Mr. Stokinger went into great detail about the health trust refund, what it meant, and that it was actually going back to surplus to the taxpayers of each town. In December of 2013, Mrs. Stokinger, before this board in this room, again went through the health trust refund, how much was coming back, that it was going to go to surplus, and then again in May or June when we reviewed again what the surplus was going to be. And I will add that in September, before the Budget Committee, there was no mention of what the surplus amount would be, because at that time we're only a couple months into the school year, that you'd have no idea what the surplus was going to be. In December, he estimated what the potential surplus might be, and then in June, I guess, he went over the health trust refund a third time in public meeting and discussed what the actual surplus looks like it's going to be coming down to. And that's when we talked about the retention fund and the athletic facilities.
Thank you, Mr. Collins.
I'd be happy to go over it if the board wishes to.
Well, we're going to vote on that.
Yeah, well, we've been briefed on it. I'm not sure we all, have that need.
Can I ask a question?
Mrs. Delphine, you have a question?
I guess I have a question for Mrs. Green. What is your concern with this? Do you have a concern about
I do.
what is happening with the money,
you.
and what do you think it is?
Okay, thank you. I understand the first tranche did not all go to surplus. It went to a premium holiday. And I want to know how much of that went to the premium holiday, and I want to know how much was given back to employees by percentage and number, and I want to understand where all that money went.
Mr. Stokinger, can you give a very, very abbreviated answer to that? Because I know we've been through this.
Well, it's all going to surplus. How it came in, whether it was a credit on the bill or a check that we received, and we received both, it all comes down after refunds to employees to $855,000 and change, and that's what's in surplus. And as Mr. Collins said, I've explained that numerous times. A year ago when the auditors were in and we knew this was coming, I said, how do you want to treat it? And they said, well, it should be treated as revenue, unanticipated revenue. I know of other districts, and this attorney, in talking to him, he mentioned other districts. are using, and maybe that's where your suspicion comes from, other districts are using that premium holiday or that credit on their bill to keep their expenses low so they can spend it somewhere else. We are not doing that, and I've said that for a year or more.
You have made that very
And
clear.
I have all the figures if this board wants to spend the time on it.
No.
Thank you, Mr. Stokinger.
You have said it enough times that we should certainly understand it at this point. Mr. Collins?
Just real quick, every single time you said it, it's on Vimeo. If anyone wants to go up there and take a look, vimeo.com. All of our meetings are up there. You can see them. It's the September Budget Committee meeting. That's the one with the most detail.
And the anticipated money that we'll get this September, I put in the budget as revenue. Now, since then, within the last month, there's been some more juggling of money between Health Trust, LGC, and so forth, so that number may go up.
Thank you.
In which case,
Excuse
we'll
me.
have some unanticipated.
You're out of order. You're out of order,
revenue,
Mrs.
won't we?
Green.
And
You are out of order,
I
Mrs.
just want to
Green.
finish my point.
You may
quickly.
finish your point. Mr. Ward has been waiting to speak, so please finish.
Yes, very quickly. I'm sorry, Mr. Ward. Mr. Stokinger did also, it is in the budget, the refund that we're supposed to get in December. He also spoke to that in our school board meeting. And I believe he set the number low at $200,000 or $250,000. I might be wrong on that one, but that number and that discussion was had during a school board meeting. So that would be anticipated revenue that we're supposed to be seeing next year.
Thank you, Mr. Collins.
So
Mr. Ward.
that's the
you've
way
been-
I understand it anyways.
You've been very patient.
Is all this information and possibly an explanation in layman's terms available if we wanted to come outside of this meeting to see you and make an appointment? Myself or anyone part of the public?
Yes.
In the essence of time, I don't think it's necessary to do it here. But we could do it in private with you if we had concerns.
Sure.
Mrs. Delfino.
And I just want to reiterate what you said, Mr. Stokinger. You've talked to the auditors about how you're handling this money?
Yes. Yeah, I
And
inquired a
others
year
who would
ago
know,
when they were
you've
on our
been very, it
premises.
sounds like you've been very careful in how you've kept track of this and how you've used it to make sure that you're following all the guidelines and specifications. Thank you.
I'd like to call the question. Again.
All right, Mrs. Danahy, do we have a motion on the floor? Thank you. Would you read it?
History of the Timberlane, a report for the history of the Timberlane Regional School District share of the Health Trust return of surplus. Correct.
Oh, refund, Health Trust refund by date and disposition.
All right,
Thank you.
very good. All in favor? Opposed? I think we as a board have had adequate discussion. Unless someone has something new to bring to the table, I would like to give the public an opportunity to weigh in. Representative Sanders,